Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. I think that you are going to have some fun with me today. Why? Because we're talking about things that are like easily accessible, that can enhance and create greater arousal in your body. So, and they're just like around. It's not like you're going to have to invest mega dollars to be able to have this delicious life. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about colors, smells, and sounds that arouse. Doesn't that just like, I love the word arouse because it's kind of like, well, I love words in general, and sometimes they just get me going. And some words are really have my body like excited, and the word arouse just makes me go around. It's like, great. I didn't look up the etymology of it. I'm just going with the energy of it, and I love it. So, though sometimes I do look up the etymology. So what actually has me creating this show is my full-on love of working with bodies. I love to see how bodies react to different things, react to touch, react to stimuli, react to, like, you name it. I love seeing how bodies shift and change with different environments, with different things going on. I'm kind of experimental that way, and I'm a bit of an observer. I love to be able to perceive that in bodies too. When I work on bodies, I love to be able to touch a body and then see how it shifts and changes. So what I actually do in my everyday life is that I work with people and animals and actually agriculture. Actually, I work with it all, and all of it is to create a sense of greater connection to everything. So when I work with people, it's to get them to have a greater sense of connection to themselves, their bodies, other people, the universe, all of it at hand. Because for me, what I'm aware of is that most disease in bodies starts with having a lack of connection and pleasure to just in life, lack of connection. Think about the mental health right now, with a lot of people feeling disconnected from each other. And it's creating some issues, right? So when we look at that, there's definitely a need for more and more of us to be stepping into having more pleasure. And I know I've got some people out there who are like spiritual gurus who are like, pleasure is not the way, it's about higher attainment. And my thought is, if we have this body and we chose to have this embodiment somehow, whether it was, whether you believe that this was a punishment or what this was a bonus, you have this body, and this body has the ability to pick up multiple different senses, multiple different stimuli, not just the things you're aware of with your five senses, but beyond that, so we have these crazy capacities with our bodies. And if we can pick up crap, we can also pick up the good stuff. And if we can pick up the good stuff in the sense that I mean, like things that arouse you and are pleasurable for you, which is different for everybody, we can then have our bodies begin to have more ease. So I remember when I was in high school, I did this paper, at the time we had what was called OACs, which was a grade 13. It was like a preparatory year for going to university. And in my OACs year, I did this course on sociology. And in it, I had this presentation that I did, and it was all about healing. And it was so funny because there were books out there about healing, but as an 18, 19-year-old, I didn't really know which ones that were the ones. And it was really hard to find them in the library. There just weren't sections for them. So I went to my favorite bookstore that I ended up years after, about 7 or 8 years later, ended up working in that favorite bookstore. And I picked up some books. And one of the things that struck me the most was that the word ease and dis-ease, and the way that they're worded is like dis-ease is actually the lack of ease. And ever since that, I was like, what? It's the lack of ease. Okay, then I require more ease. It was like one of those ta moments at about 18 or 19 where I just went, wow, okay, so if all disease is just the lack of ease, where can we have more ease? What creates ease? And this curiosity kind of like really started in me about like, so what actually creates ease? For everybody, it's different, right? And so because for everybody it's different, it is not something that you can write a protocol for. It's not something that you can write a formula for. Everybody is different. And when I work with people, everything that I do with people is individualized. It's all different based on them, their lifestyles, what they do enjoy, what they don't enjoy. So it's a big process when I get to know a person that comes to me as a client. We spend sometimes a couple of hours chatting about them, and then it just keeps going. So a lot of that is to get to know a person so that I can figure out and facilitate what would create greater ease for them in their bodies. Sometimes it's a discovery process too, where it lasts more than, a few sessions of doing that. And some people just love it. So they've been coming back for years. I've had some people coming back to me for over 20 years. So it's fun, right? Having more ease in your body. So what creates that? And today we're going to be looking at things like colors, smells, and sounds that arouse. Arousal and ease to me are akin. They are like, if you're aroused, your body is having ease. It's very tricky for your body to be like even sexually aroused if there isn't a sense of ease in what you're receiving. Even if you're being spanked, there can be an ease with it, right? So there has to be a level of somewhat relaxation in the body for the body to be able to heal. There is actually a lot of evidence for that. Like if your adrenal glands are on overdrive, and I talk to a lot of people whose adrenal glands are just on overdrive 24/7, until your adrenal glands are actually like calming down, it's really tricky for the body to heal because you're in survive mode. And we had a great host that was a naturopath on the Inspired Choices Network for several years. I think it was several years. I can't remember. Anyway, he had some shows that were called Grizzly Bears and 2-Year-Olds, and he talked a lot about the response from the amygdala to the thyroid to the adrenal glands, and how that works and how that stays on overdrive to keep you in a different kind of arousal state, which is more about the arousal of being on alert. So it's more like an alert state. So there's different kinds of arousal. You do get heightened, but then different hormones get released. We're looking for those happy feel-good hormones. Like we want some dopamine coming in. We want to feel a little like relaxed, happy, easeful, right? So these are things that we are going to be talking about today, because we have environments like colors, smells, and sounds around us all the time. And some are really intrusive and some are really delightful. So the ones that are really intrusive are going to get you almost into that fight or flight mode, right? You're going to feel like I know there are some smells and some sounds that actually make me so aggressive I want to punch people. And I know those, so I try and stay away from them. And I know there are certain tones that come out of drums that really like get me so hardcore that I literally will like want to fight people. So I try and stay away from things like drumming circles, because they get me really angry. And I know this is lifetimes of work. And I know this is lifetimes of things that have affected me. I'm aware of that, so I don't put myself in the situations that are going to have me feel like I'm on high alert where I want to attack. Attacking is something that can be necessary if your life is under threat, but if your life isn't under threat, then it's not really that cool. So if you know that about yourself, and if you know that that's just how you are, doesn't make you wrong, doesn't mean you have to change it. It's just how you are. Just like if you have an adverse reaction to smells, if there's like, I call them high-pitched smells. There are high-pitched smells in some laundry detergents that are so high-pitched, I like don't even walk down the aisle in the grocery store. They actually make me sometimes want to cry or vomit, or my body has incredibly visceral reactions to things like smells, sounds, and colors. And the chances are yours do too, because you're alive. Now, if they don't, count yourself lucky in a way that you can probably manage in some pretty heavy environments where there's heavy pollution, where there's heavy sounds, where there's you can live deep in cities where these things you don't even notice them. Now, if you don't even notice them at all, then there's something else to be aware of, that your body might actually be trying to protect you by shutting off those awarenesses so that you're not bombarded, right? I know that when I moved out to the countryside about 14 years ago, before I was pregnant with my daughter, and I'm just saying this because there was a comment in the chat room about pregnancy, and just before I was pregnant with my daughter, I moved to the countryside, and the lack of stimuli, it took my body about 2 weeks to actually learn how to be peaceful and be relaxed. And now when I go into large cities for a few days, my body's like, wow, I don't even know how people live with this much stimulation constantly. It's like obtrusive for me. But then again, I live in the middle of nowhere in a field, basically. In a house in a field, by the way. I'm not like homeless, just doing a radio show, but I'm homeless. That would be interesting. We don't have any homeless people right now on our network, so hey. So one of the things that was mentioned in the chat room about being pregnant is that it was even worse. And it was for me too. I could smell restaurants from like freaking miles away. And we could be in a new environment and I'd be like, oh my God, there's this kind of restaurant over on somewhere like 5 kilometers away on the left. I could smell it. And the smells they would make me vomit constantly. So when people talk about morning sickness, mine was all triggered by smells, especially smells of food and fats cooking. Like it was all of that, and spices. I was like eating the most bland, tasteless food because every smell drove me nuts. Even my own smell was like, I was like, oh my God, I just gotta like, I can't use soaps. I was like going for my all natural own personal smell. When I said before my own smell was bugging me, it was more because I had all these, what I thought was my own smell, but it was actually like deodorized smell, and it was like perfumes from soaps and things. And it was like bugging me. And then I realized, oh man, these smells are so obtrusive. So, and there's also chemicals that bind those smells into things like soaps and whatever, that those can also be very aggressive as well. So we're going to look today at some delightful things that have been kind of a standard. And please just know this, like when I mention some smells that are arousing to male bodies and arousing to female bodies, I'm not trying to limit that or the genders. This is just something that there hasn't been a lot of identification for, say, transgender people. There haven't been really a lot of studies on that and reactions to smells. Most studies have been with people who identify as male or female. So it's not that I'm not including you guys. I'm sorry if that it offends you. It's that there haven't been studies for me to actually refer to. So if you have any input, or if you've done your own personal studies and you happen to have like a group of trans friends and y'all like similar smells, I'd love to hear about it. That would be so cool. So there are smells that have been studied. They've done this repeatedly over and over again to see, which smells arouse men, which smells arouse women. I have to say that the smells that arouse men are actually the smells that arouse me the most. And the smells that arouse women are not smells that necessarily arouse me. So I will mention them, and keep in mind this stuff is fluid, just like we are, very fluid. These studies, though, were just done in a way to try and classify things, as that's what studies do. They classify things. and that's how they work. That's what they need to do, because they're trying to gather data and information, and the only way to do that is to make classifications of different things, right? So yeah, it's not, yes, the work in itself is actually flawed, but this is how we get our information. So I feel like I had to justify that. It's strange, but I did. So we're going to head to our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about colors, smells, and sounds that are delightful and arousing right after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. So today we're talking about colors, scents, and sounds that arouse, sexually arouse. Now there's kinds of arousal where you are aroused to fight, and then there's arousal where you're turned on. And we're talking about the turn on today. I did mention earlier in the first segment about some things that I find obtrusive, like sounds and different things that I found really aggressive. So that's something to just be aware of about yourself. It's not going to be the same for everybody. And if some things really throw you, just know that and be aware of yourself so that you don't throw yourself into tizzies and frenzies, right? So why is it that scents are so evocative? Like, what is it about them that has us feel so totally aroused or not aroused, or like what is it about them, right? So some things for scents have actually been proven is that they trigger memories, and they trigger different events, like they trigger memories of different events in our lives, and they trigger emotions as well. And I have done shows on aphrodisiacs before, and some like things like scents are considered aphrodisiac, and the word aphrodisiac actually comes from the Greek goddess Aphrodite, right? So Aphrodite, the goddess of love. So it's things that are to evoke love in our bodies, in that sense of feeling of love and turn on, right? So there are some scents that are kind of common across the board for men and women, although there have been some distinctions where they say that, you know, in some of the things I've read in one of the courses I took about aphrodisiacs, they were saying that men are more turned on by cinnamon than women are. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because actually I'm very turned on by cinnamon. I love it. And yet I have one of my other really good friends really can't stand not only the smell of cinnamon, the taste of cinnamon, the color cinnamon. I'm actually kind of wearing a cinnamony color. This would just drive her nuts. So she's like, so like cinnamon could be maybe from a lifetime. We never know. So some typical smells that arouse most people, though, they say are pumpkin, lavender, vanilla, cinnamon, peppermint, and ginger. Now that's interesting because I actually have a lot of friends. My friend who is one of the owner of this station, actually, I was at a party of hers when she was leaving one of her apartments, and somehow we all were sitting around a table discussing lavender and our thoughts on lavender. And there were so many of us sitting there going, oh, lavender, I just can't handle lavender. Like there was such an adverse reaction, all of them women, and all of them having an adverse, like, if I have to lavender, but I don't really want to, it doesn't calm me. It actually like makes me wake up. And for some of them, it made them angry. So these are not true across the board, right? You need to go and smell things and see what they evoke in you. And here's a little fun thing that you can do with your lover, because this is really about experimentation and play. Get out a whole bunch of smells. Try some of the ones that I mentioned, like try the cinnamon, try some of these things like the pumpkin spices, pumpkin spice pie, you know, pumpkin pie smell. I love that. I like, if there's anything that ever says pumpkin pie flavor, I'm like, gotta try it. Pumpkin pie latte, gotta try it. The other day we were driving through a Tim Hortons drive-through and they had like pumpkin pie Timbits. I'm like, gotta try it. It's pumpkin pie. I love pumpkin pie. So there's pumpkin, so get these out if you have them around: pumpkin, lavender, vanilla, cinnamon, peppermint, and ginger. So that pumpkin pie smell has a few smells in it. Usually there's like cloves, there's some ginger, and there's some cinnamon. And then there's the pumpkin and the sugar and all those other yummy things, right? So when they say pumpkin, they really mean like the pumpkin pie flavors. Get those out, you know, whether you can find them in a liquid. I would recommend if you're going to do cinnamon, to get it as an essential oil or like a food flavoring, so that you really get an intensity of it, rather than the dry cinnamon. The dry cinnamon doesn't necessarily have a lot of smell unless you're turning it into something that you're going to drink. And all of these to me are so much more fun when they're fresh or in some kind of a fresh form. So fresh lavender. Now, here's a funny one. Although I'm not a fan of like lavender oils, I actually really like the smell of lavender on a lavender plant. So I'm growing a lavender plant and I like to touch it and smell it that way. I don't really like it when it's processed. I'm so weird and so particular. So this could be really fun. Get them fresh right now. So this show is live September 6th. It is great to have these things right now, like in most of the northern hemisphere and even some of the southern hemisphere. All of these things are things that you can probably get like available fresh right now. So pumpkin, lavender, vanilla bean, you could get it right, you know, Madagascar vanilla bean, and like open up the pod and smell it. So good. I love vanilla. That's another one of my favorites. I could pretty much saturate my house in vanilla and cinnamon and just like bask in the awesome smells of it and be so freaking happy. Those are smells that those are my go-tos. Like if my house feels blah, I will like put on something cinnamon or vanilla. Sometimes I'll just like make a drink, like a tea that has cinnamon and vanilla in it, so that not only can I smell it, I can taste it, and then my house smells like it too, which I like. My house is tiny, so it can fill with smells pretty easily. Then there's also like peppermint, which is lovely. Not everybody's into peppermint, right? And some people have aversions to peppermint as well. So again, that's another one of those ones that I love fresh. I love it. I'm growing that too. I'm growing like 3 kinds of mint right now: peppermint, chocolate mint, and I think spearmint. And chocolate mint is amazing. I like will go out and while I'm walking around my garden, I'll just be chewing on peppermint. And so when you chew on these things too, those smells go up into your olfactory system and you can really pick them up. So putting these in your mouth is another cool way to smell them, but also taste them, because you can't actually taste without smell. There was a great show about this person who was a food taster and they lost their sense of smell. So they had to base it on memory of what they remembered about certain things and some other responses to food so they could keep their job. And ginger. I love ginger. That is not a favorite taste for many people. I have a lot of friends and family who are like to ginger, though I love ginger and I could like chew on candied ginger, like that you get when you go to Japanese restaurants. I could chew on it just like candy. I could take a hunk of ginger and just like chew on that too. I love ginger. It's really spicy for those of you who don't normally just chew on it like you like I do. But it can be like a good hit, cleans your sinuses. And a lot of these things do way more than just arouse you. They can actually be super good healing remedies as well. Like they can help your blood, they can help your digestion. Like ginger is amazing for digestion. All of these things have generally dual purposes. So that's kind of a beautiful thing. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some scents so that we can move on in our next segment to some other stuff. So one of the things, so we talked about the pumpkin pie smell, and there are actually people who have studied all of these smells, and there are numbers that are connected to them. So I'm going to give you the quick rundown that pumpkin pie is, in one study, it was found that the scent of pumpkin pie mixed with lavender increased blood flow to the nether regions by 40% when sniffed. Woo! So isn't that fun? So if you want some information on that, there is a blog on fragrancex.com, and the blog is about aphrodisiacs and scents. I will put a link into my show posting, so you can go into that, so I don't have to read to you, because I'm sure you can read, and then you can have fun with that and just go through it. It's an interesting study. I know you guys are smart, and if you are curious, you can find it on there. I'm just going to give you a few other rundowns with like lavender that's been known to arouse men by 40%. Vanilla is also one of those things that a certain type of like amount of vanilla can also arouse as well. Strawberries, I love strawberries. They increase arousal as well. Jasmine, oh, that's one of my favorite smells. And it's actually been used for centuries to improve libido and promote intimacy as well. So very cool. Ginger is another one of those kind of spices that I talked about that I love. And black licorice, one of my all-time favorite candies. I love black licorice. I think I literally love almost everything that's an aphrodisiac because I love to be aroused. I love it. It just makes me happy. And well, this is an interesting one. So a little tidbit of information on black licorice is that the scent is controversial. This scent of the controversial candy has been shown to increase arousal in men by 13% when combined with the scent of donuts. And that number jumped to 32%. The sweet smell, which comes from anise, has been rumored to work on women as well. So I actually just get anise seed is what I do, and I make a tea out of it. I do that for various reasons, especially right now in the world with some stuff going on health-wise. It can really help with some things. I'll just put it that way. There's stuff in anise seed that is super healing. So I use it for medicinal purposes, but I also love the smell of it. And yep, cinnamon is also been proved to increase sexual function. They actually did a study for male rats that it might aid even in erectile dysfunction, but don't get too excited, guys. Erectile dysfunction has a lot of different components to it. So you can listen to some of my shows about erectile dysfunction and how to get back on track for that. And I may be doing a few more because I seem to keep studying and researching erectile dysfunction. It's my like part-time interest. So that's what I've been doing lately. And donuts is a fun one. And the human male sexual response to donuts is really high. I love it. So, and pink grapefruit, that's another one. I don't really like that smell as an essential oil, but I do like pink grapefruit as a drink. So, and oranges and sandalwood, I love sandalwood, and lily of the valley. That one's kind of high pitched. So if you don't really like high pitched florals, don't go for lily of the valley. It can be quite disturbing, along with rose. Like, you know, they say rose is a really high vibratory energy, and they're not kidding, because it literally gives me a headache when it's in an essential oil. But as an actual rose, it does not. It makes me happy as an actual rose, but as an essential oil, I'm like, wow, that hurts. So, and peppermint as well. So lots of great smells, right? There's so many to choose from. And I would, if I were you, explore. bring in some scents that maybe you've never even smelled before. If some of these things are things you've never played with or experienced, bring them in, try them out, see how your body responds. Maybe pine needles arouse you. I just think of that because I was looking out my window and I've got a forest and I got pine in there. And I've also got lilac bushes. I got like 40-foot high lilac bushes. They're actually more like a forest of lilacs. And when they come out in the spring, my body gets so freaking happy. I'll just wander around the trees and like sniff them all day long. Ugh, I love lilacs, and they only last for like 2 weeks. So I try and be home when they're around so I can enjoy them. And actually, my lilac bushes are not 40-foot high. They just seem that way. They're more like 25 or 30 feet high. They're huge. They're trees. So if you love these scents, surround yourself in them, right? They don't have to just be something that you use purposely to try and have sex, but make them part of your life. Wear them, eat them, use them, put them in your spaces. And you can do that with different various things, like I mentioned earlier, cooking them, putting them into diffusers. You can put them into spray bottles and put them onto your bed sheets if you like, right? As air fresheners. So there's multiple ways that you can bring these scents into your life. And I love surrounding myself with all the ones that I like. So I do. So you can too. So we will be talking next about colors and sounds, and we'll be getting through both of those in this episode as well. So stay tuned. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. So in the last segment, we were talking about smells that arouse, sexually arouse. And one of the things we went through was looking at all the different smells that have been considered aphrodisiacs throughout time. And what I encourage you to do is play with them. You can even create a buffet with your lover, and you can put all the scents out, and you could get blindfolded and see, because blindfolding is fun, so you don't actually see what the thing is. Then say, for example, if it's a mint leaf, you can rub the leaf so that the person can sniff it. It can be super erotic play, just bringing sense in. So that's one of the first and easiest ways to play with scents in your bedroom. You can also spray the smells in there too as well. But I think it would be fun, don't you, to create a lovely buffet of smells so that you can just have play with your partner with no agenda, and get that mask on your face and cover those eyes, and don't cover your nose for this one, right? So take your COVID mask off and put an eye mask on instead, and start to sniff. And remember, we can actually smell things other than masks these days. So you're allowed to smell stuff. Bring it into your bedroom. Have fun with this. Make life a little bit more interesting. So we talked about that. And then one of the things that I also mentioned is that colors can arouse. Now we know this. There have been studies. There was a man who wrote a book called Let There Be Light. And I'm looking at my shelf because it's on my shelf. And in that book, he talks about colors that heal. So we know colors do a lot of things. Colors heal. If colors heal, then colors can also do the opposite. So if things can do one thing, they can also do the other. Just like lavender can calm some people, it can also make other people angry. So colors that heal. So he did studies in the 1800s, early 1900s. The man was a genius who wrote Let There Be Light, and working with all the different colors. So we know that they can arouse you when you see them visually, how your mind picks up that information, your brain picks up the information through the lens of your eyes, and then it creates a response in your body. So you know what a really cool thing is I once did a reading for a woman who was blind about 20 years ago. And she said she could feel colors. And I was like, well, that's cool. So as I was sitting with her, because she could feel the cards, even though she couldn't see them, she's like, whoa, that's like really bright. And I'm like, whoa, okay, cool. She had a guide dog with her. She had some kind of like low, like she could see outlines or something. She had a very interesting kind of blindness where she could kind of see outlines, but she felt colors. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. That card's in front of you, so maybe you have some ability to see that. And I was like, okay, let's stop and feel. And there was a car that was parked, that had just driven up and was parked behind her. And we were in a booth that had a wall with no mirror. So there's no way this woman could have seen this. And I said, what color is the car outside that's sitting right outside the door? And she's like, bright yellow. I'm like, yeah, it is bright yellow. And what are the chances? There aren't a lot of bright yellow cars, right? So she felt it and she was like, she had such visceral reactions to colors that even walking down the street, she could feel what colors people were wearing. They would come at her really loudly, like yells and like people screaming. And that to me was just phenomenal. So I've always used her as an example of like, even if you're blind, you still feel colors. You still have a reaction. Your body still knows colors. So it doesn't matter if you can see them, your body knows them. And I think she was one of the finest examples to me of why it is that color healing can work on a different level, that it doesn't really have always to do with seeing it. It has to do with the experience of being in the energy of it. So one of the colors that has been across the board that men and women have been told that they have been said or told that they love, they're not being told this, but they say that they love this. Red is like the number one color, right? So women like it in men because they think it's like a dominance color. They think that men who wear red are like dominant. They're more authoritarian. They see them as somebody who's probably well-to-do. It's just a response. It's like an unconscious response we have. And then women have this response to, men have this response to women wearing red. It's more of a biological response where it's like, well, a woman who wears red, it's almost symbolic, like, oh, she bleeds. That means that she can reproduce. Reproducing is what we want. It's all these unconscious biological responses to things that we have. Now, I look at that from another perspective, and we do have, if you look at it from the perspective of chakras, it's our base chakra. And that has to do with survival and, you know, even things like connection to community and connection to different, well, I'll just say community, but it can even be community at large, like even like your ancestors or whatever. So this is like a deep rooted energy. It keeps us connected to the earth. And it is attractive to be rooted and earthy. And one of my friends who has a show on the Inspired Choices Network, Jennifer Kramer Lewis, she has a show called Big Fat Lies. All of her marketing is red. She has a red background. She's wearing a red dress. She's got red lips, and it's stunning. And it just goes bam. You see it everywhere. Red is one of those colors that you see. And even when you get a car, they tell you, in Canada at least, your insurance is slightly higher if you have a red car. Why? Because when you're driving down the highway, they appear to be driving faster or something. There's something to do with speeding. People tend to speed more in red cars. They did all these studies and they figured that it's more dangerous to have a red car, so your insurance is higher. So all these interesting things connected to colors, right? So you can look at colors from a very fundamental place, like how they connect to different chakras. For sure, you can look at it from, like, there's, you know, that fundamental base energy of survival, then with red, and then we go orange, which is more about creativity and collaboration. These are my interpretations, okay? Like, these are not what's written in all the books, but as we move up, then it's like all about the self and feeling empowered. And then heart chakra is about connecting with others and feeling good about your connections with others and opening your heart and having vulnerability. And then we move up. So that was like a green color. Then we move into the blues, which is more about how you want to be seen and heard. And especially if you'd like to be heard and seen, you know, those are some colors to wear for that. It brings those energies up more. And then you've got indigo and violet. So indigo is this mix between kind of like a blue and a purple. And that's to open up your insights. And then, you know, if you want to wear purple and get cosmic, go for it. And white is all of those. When you look at the spectrum of light, white is the inclusion of everything. White is what I would say, white light, that is like is all inclusive of every aspect of the rainbow. So when you think of it that way, it's kind of interesting, because then in the world, we've also decided that we want to split the inclusion and have everything be division. So anyway, that's just my interesting tidbit on that. So I'm going to move away from that thought for a second, because we're talking about colors and how they arouse. Again, some people have different reactions to colors. My mom has an absolute aversion to purple. She cannot stand purple. To her, purple means poverty, and it means all things to do with not looking after your finances, which is interesting. She used to just go nuts around purple. She's a lot better with it now, but it used to be such an adverse reaction to purple. Where my husband loves purple, our whole house would be purple. However, my mom visits every day. We have supper with her because she lives just down the road. It would be very violent to her to have purple all over our house. So we don't do that. We just have it in our bedroom, where my husband loves to, like, pretty much live. So he loves purple, and that's where we put all the purple. My daughter also loves purple, so her room is purple. But those are two rooms that are like rooms that other people don't go in, because some colors can be very almost like offensive to the senses. And it was interesting, because I had a pod school here during the year for kids who didn't want to be in school and have to, you know, be harassed or masked or anything like that. So that was in the last year, and one of the little girls said to me that my walls, she was 5, and she's like, you don't understand how much I hate yellow. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, what do you mean? She's like, your walls are yellow. I'm like, actually, my walls are beige, but they do have a hint of yellow. She's like, it bothered me all year, and I didn't even know how to tell you, but I just, that yellow is so bad. I'm like, oh my Lord, if we had known this, we could have, like, done something. It's not a big deal, pay $50 to paint it. But if this color has been what's triggering you to be a little jerk, then man, I wish I knew this. So Yeah, it's sometimes good to know. Like you may feel it when you walk into a space and you're like, wow, what is this? Is it the smell? Is it the color? Is it the sound? Is it the energy? Like, what is it that's having you react so like where you're on alert and where you want to attack? Because man, I've had some attack moments with things like color, smells, and scents. And lucky for you if you don't have such like crazy reactions, but a lot of bodies do. And this is why we have environments now that are like scent free, and they try to have more muted colors that are not so violent that people will react to violently. So I think it's a really cool experiment too, to play with colors in the same way that you can play with the buffet of smells. You could do this again too with put on the blindfold and see how your body feels around different colors. You know, you could have scarves of many colors and you could have them on your body, wrapped around your body. You could be tied up with them. Some scarves might feel better than other scarves. My body loves the feeling of black silk more so than any other color of silk. It's weird, but it's just the way it is. So what what are some of the colors that if you do like, to have a little play, and you do like, some a little bit of roping them up and tying them up kind of play, so see if there are some things that, even if it's just the difference between color, that has you feel way more relaxed and into it than others, right? So it could be a red scarf makes you feel more happy than a black scarf or a yellow scarf. So I would go with like experiment with play with all kinds of things, with different colors of all kinds of things, because sometimes you may be reacting to the color and it may not actually be the play itself. So experiment, play. This is part of why we're here on this planet, is to play, 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 right? So we are going to go to our next commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about sounds that arouse. And yeah, we're coming to the end of the show. So thank you for sticking with me. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. So today we're talking about colors, sounds, and smells that arouse. One of the people that I really admire for his work about sound work is a guy named David Sereda. And I will also put his name. So his website is David, and his last name is Sereda, and it's .co. He does healing sounds, and he is like one of the most, to me, one of the wisest people when it comes to sound therapy that I've heard speak, and I've heard a lot of them speak. So what he talks about is certain sounds that heal. And I think that's good information to have too. So he talks about frequencies and how they've changed from prior to the 1930s till now. And we used to have he calls it a 432A, I think it is. So there's different sounds, and now it's not the same at the same frequency as it used to be. So if you can get back to some some different tunes, and the instruments right now are not tuned to those frequencies either. Our current frequencies, a lot of them are tuned for things that are not necessarily healing. They can actually be destructive to the DNA, and the DNA is like an antenna that picks up frequencies all the time. That's a whole other story for another day, and I wish one day I could actually have David Sarita on. However, his wife recently died, so I think I'll just leave him alone for now. But he's a genius, so look him up, David Sarita, and find out more information about healing energies. And then arousing healing sounds, healing frequencies. So the sounds are the frequencies. This is what I'm trying to get at. Sounds are essentially frequencies that you're picking up. You're picking them up auditorially, but you're also picking them up in your DNA. Like your body picks these up. Your pineal gland picks them up too, like a transmission is coming through. So your body really is picking up the frequencies of sound rather than, say, the music itself. And I looked into this because my curiosity was, why am I so violently reacting to like drumming? And yes, there was past life stuff, but it's also the frequency. There are frequencies that are so disruptive in a way that's actually not conducive to healing. That's like, it's like, I can't even explain it. It's like being punched out for no reason. So listen for yourself and actually be present with your body when you listen to music to see how your body is reacting. And the more present you are with the frequencies that you're surrounded with, you'll start to notice that you'll notice little tones and intonations. You'll probably even start to hear the electricity in your walls, like many people I know do, because you are so in tune with the frequencies that come out from these sounds. Not that you want to be that hypersensitive necessarily. However, we are that hypersensitive by our truly nature. We needed to be so that we could hear, if miles away there was somebody coming to attack us. And this is like a survival instinct. We need to be aware of frequencies of sound. Even people who are deaf can hear sound. My god sister is deaf, and at her wedding, she danced all night, even though she's completely deaf, because she can feel the frequencies. And so the music was really loud so that you could feel it in the floor, so that half of the wedding party was like deaf as well. So they also could feel the frequencies in the floor. So they all danced barefoot. We feel them. Our body senses them. We're aware of them. And some are far more intrusive than others, and some are incredibly arousing. So play with those, because every sound will be different to people. I can't remember what his name was. There was all this music in the 70s and 80s that was like supposed to like get you down and get you groovy. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the one particular musician that everybody was like, yeah, you gotta listen. He had this like deep voice, and you had to like listen to him because he was so sexy. And yeah, some of those tones that are a little deeper, a little denser, a little more bass will actually get you right into your root. And that's part of what we're talking about, because our root is like right there. It's part of that drive for survival. It's going to kick you in and get you excited to have some get it on. You listen to things like some music that are higher elevations of sounds, or like super high pitched sounds, where people may call them like angelic tones or something. They're very high. They get you really up into your body, right? Because the different tones will have different reactions in your body. So you can create those tones yourself too. You can tone it out, and just notice that as likely as you go deeper, you're going to notice that the sound moves right into your root, even into your feet, and your body will react to these tones. And then as you go higher pitch, like a high pitch E, it'll come right up into your head and right out. And you can move frequencies through your body to both arouse and heal. And that is to me, it's actually one of the first things I learned how to do with healing, was using toning and frequencies that way. So now I use frequencies in other ways as well. So one of the things I'd like you to take away from today is that, yes, there is all this research that's been done out there, and I'd also like you to explore it yourself and see what works for you, and see which tones work for you, which smells, which all of it. all of it, enjoy it in colors. So remember to stay tuned in and turned on until next week when we're going to find out how to be more sexy.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.